Seniors, attention. There are 8 foods you should never refrigerate, and the reason goes beyond flavor and texture. Cold temperatures can cause dangerous chemical changes, nutrient loss, and even promote bacterial growth in certain cases. The modern habit of putting almost everything in the fridge, although convenient, may be silently contributing to problems in the gut, heart, and even brain in people over 60 years old. Number 8 on the list, potatoes. It may sound like an exaggeration, but when you put raw potatoes in the fridge, it activates a cold-induced sweetening process. The low temperature converts the starch inside the tuber into simple sugars like glucose and fructose. The result isn't just an unpleasant sweet taste. When cooked at high temperatures, especially when frying or roasting until dark, these sugars react with the amino acid asparagine and form acrylamide, an unwanted compound created in the Maillard reaction. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies acrylamide as a probable human carcinogen, and European regulatory bodies emphasize that dietary exposure to this compound should be reduced whenever possible. Agronomic research shows that storing potatoes at refrigerator temperatures rapidly increases the level of reducing sugars, which significantly boosts acrylamide formation when the food is subjected to intense frying or roasting. Besides the chemical risk, cold causes cellular damage to potato tissue. The cell walls lose integrity, the texture becomes grainy, and the final preparation tends to be sweet, odd, and mushy. If you've ever had mashed potatoes with an off taste or roasted potatoes with an unpleasant sweetness, the fridge may be to blame. Another lesser-known point is that cold alone doesn't prevent all issues. If the potato was exposed to light before or after, it forms green pigments and concentrates glycoalkaloids, such as solanine and chaconine, which irritate the gastrointestinal tract and cause a bitter taste. That's why it's essential to control both light and temperature simultaneously. There is also a metabolic impact for those who monitor their blood sugar levels. Although cold potatoes may only taste sweeter to the palate, the increase in reducing sugars means that when you fry or roast them until dark, you produce more browning compounds and potentially increase the acrylamide load, something that seniors with chronic illnesses should avoid as a precaution. According to risk assessments by the European Food Safety Authority, the good news is that fixing this mistake is simple. Instead of refrigerating, store potatoes in a cool, dry, dark, and well-ventilated place. The ideal range is between 7 to 10 degrees Celsius or about 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a paper bag, wooden box, or breathable basket. Avoid sealed plastic bags that trap moisture and promote mold. Keep them away from direct light and heat sources like ovens and sunny areas. Inspect weekly and remove any potatoes that are sprouting, softened, turning green, or bruised, as one spoiled potato can accelerate the deterioration of others. Do not store together with onions for long periods, as moisture and volatile compound exchanges worsen preservation for both. For those who have already put potatoes in the fridge without knowing, there is a partial recovery process called reconditioning. Simply remove the potatoes from the cold and keep them in a dark and cool environment, around 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit, for a few days up to 2 weeks. Some of the sugars will convert back into starch, reducing the risk of acrylamide when cooking and also improving texture. This is a common practice in the processing industry when a batch undergoes cold-induced sweetening. In everyday cooking, it's also possible to reduce acrylamide formation during preparation, which is especially relevant for seniors who love crispy potatoes. The first step is to prefer moist cooking methods like boiling or steaming. If you want to brown them afterward, Do a quick finish just until golden, avoiding excessive darkening. Authorities such as the UK Food Standards Agency advise aiming for a golden color, not brown. Another simple trick is to soak the cut potatoes in water for 15 to 30 minutes and then rinse them. Number 7, bread. This surprises almost everyone. The refrigerator makes bread go stale faster. It seems counterintuitive, but the science is clear. Cold accelerates starch retrogradation, a process in which starch molecules recrystallize and expel water. Researchers from the Institute of Food Technologists in the United States observed that bread stored at refrigerator temperature ages up to 6 times faster than bread kept at room temperature. When measuring crumb firmness over several days, they found that refrigerated bread becomes hard and brittle in just 3 days, while room temperature bread can stay pleasant for an entire week. Cold also destroys aromatic compounds that give fresh bread its distinctive smell, hence the cardboard-like sensation when eating refrigerated bread. The best way to store bread is in a bread box or paper bag in a cool, dry place, with slight air circulation to prevent mold without losing too much moisture. If you're not going to eat the bread within 7 days, the best strategy is to slice and freeze it. Freezing preserves the structure because it happens quickly and halts starch recrystallization. When needed, take the slices straight from the freezer to the toaster or oven for a few minutes. This thermal shock brings back crunch on the outside and softness on the inside without making the slice soggy. Avoid letting it thaw slowly on the counter, as moisture redistributes unevenly and the crumb loses quality. In very humid regions, a ventilated bread box with a small cotton cloth helps balance humidity. Naturally fermented breads tend to mold more slowly due to their acidity, but cold is still not a friend to texture. To preserve larger portions, wrap them in paper first, and then in freezer-safe wrap, reducing freezer burn. If your goal is a soft sandwich for the next day, keep the loaf whole, slice only when needed, and avoid the fridge, as the whole loaf loses moisture more slowly than exposed slices. Number 6, honey. Honey is one of the most stable foods in nature. Samples found in Egyptian tombs were still edible after millennia, thanks to their low water activity, natural acidity, and the presence of enzymes that produce small amounts of hydrogen peroxide, creating a hostile environment for microorganisms. Putting honey in the refrigerator doesn't make it unsafe, but it ruins its physical and sensory properties within just a few weeks. Cold accelerates crystallization because it reduces glucose solubility. Thick, irregular crystals form, giving the honey a gritty texture and making it hard to spread, and some of the volatile aromas are lost due to structural changes. That's why you may notice that honey, which once seemed perfect, turns into a hard, opaque mass. The ideal is to store honey in a well-sealed glass jar, away from direct light, at a stable room temperature. Honey is hygroscopic. It draws moisture from the air, so the lid must always be tightly closed to avoid dilution and the risk of fermentation. If it crystallizes, don't throw it away. Warm it slowly in a gentle water bath below 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, stirring occasionally until it becomes fluid again. This care preserves its color, flavor, and enzymatic activity. Avoid microwaving, which creates hot spots and can degrade sensitive compounds. Store honey at room temperature with a tightly closed lid in a dark and stable place. The ideal range is between 18 and 24 degrees Celsius, about 64 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Avoid direct sunlight, which accelerates oxidation and the degradation of pigments and enzymes. If it crystallizes, don't discard it. Warm it in a gentle water bath with warm water and patient timing stirring occasionally until it becomes fluid again. This care preserves its color, aroma, and enzymatic activity. That bag of specialty grains kept in the fridge is losing its essence every day. The refrigerator is a humid environment, full of odors, and subject to open-close cycles that make the temperature fluctuate. Number 5, garlic. Garlic in the refrigerator is a disaster waiting to happen. In addition to losing its aromatic and therapeutic potency, it can even become a food safety issue. In refrigeration, the bulb begins to sprout, and those green shoots aren't just unsightly. They're often bitter and can cause digestive discomfort. Even worse, the cold and humid fridge environment promotes mold growth on the peel and between cloves, and certain fungi can produce harmful mycotoxins. Researchers at the University of California, Davis observed that refrigerated garlic loses approximately half of its allicin content within 10 days, exactly the compound responsible for garlic's antibacterial, antiviral, and cardiovascular benefits. In practice, by putting garlic in the fridge, you're giving up much of what makes it special. From a culinary standpoint, the damage also shows up during chopping. Cold partially breaks down cell walls, the texture becomes soft and watery, and chopping becomes a hassle because the garlic tends to turn into a sticky paste. Proper storage is simple and follows principles of low humidity, good ventilation, and stable temperature. Use a mesh bag, open basket, or paper pouch, and keep in a cool, dry place, ideally between 16 and 18 degrees Celsius, about 60 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit, protected from direct light. Avoid sealed plastic containers or airtight jars because garlic needs to breathe to prevent condensation and mold. Keep away from areas near the stove where heat and steam accelerate sprouting, and away from sunlight, which oxidizes sulfur compounds and gives garlic a bitter taste. Number 4, bananas. Those large brown spots on the peel indicate that the fruit's natural defense mechanisms have failed. That's dead tissue. And such areas can harbor bacteria and fungi even before they're visible to the naked eye. That's why it's best to keep bananas at room temperature, preferably between 13 and 21 degrees Celsius, 55 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Hang the bunch on a holder to avoid bruising and allow the ethylene they produce to circulate, promoting more even ripening. You can control the speed of this process with simple tricks. To speed it up, place bananas in a paper bag with an apple, as it releases a lot of ethylene and stimulates ripening. To slow it down, separate the bananas and wrap each stem tightly with plastic wrap, reducing ethylene release and extending the consumption window by a few days. Avoid the refrigerator for routine storage because cold injury damages cell membranes, dulls aroma, and compromises vitamin C and flavor compounds. In very hot climates, choose the coolest room in the house. Keep the fruit away from heat sources and direct sunlight, and avoid stacking them. Pressure and impact cause bruising and dark spots. Hanging the bunch reduces contact and improves ventilation, and wrapping just the stem area with paper or plastic film helps slow ripening without suffocating the entire fruit. Number 3, onions. Putting whole onions in the fridge is one of the most common storage mistakes. High humidity and cold disrupt the conditions onions need to last. In a very humid environment, moisture seeps through the outer layers and creates ideal conditions for fungi, including the dark-colored types that show up as black mold. Certain species of fungi can produce mycotoxins, so any onion with widespread mold should be discarded. It's not enough to cut away the visible part if the contamination has penetrated the layers. Even before mold appears, cold alters the bulb's natural composition. Starch converts into sugars at high levels, and the texture starts to break down, with cell rupture and a soggy appearance. In the kitchen, the result is clear. The onion loses its ability to brown and caramelize evenly because too much water is released and the sugars behave differently, increasing the risk of burning the outside before the deep flavor has time to develop. Proper handling replicates post-harvest conditions. Store whole onions in a cool, dry, dark, and well-ventilated place, such as a pantry or basement, ideally between 7 and 13 degrees Celsius, 44 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a mesh bag, ventilated basket, or even clean pantyhose with knots between each onion to ensure air circulation. Avoid plastic bags which trap moisture. Keep them away from direct light, which encourages sprouting, and away from potatoes, as the two negatively affect each other when stored together. Once an onion is cut, the situation changes. The exposed surface becomes vulnerable to bacteria and oxidation, so refrigerate it in a clean, airtight container and use it within 7 days, discarding it if you notice any off odors, sliminess, or spots. To prepare sweeter, more balanced dishes without excess surface sugar, let sliced onions drain for a few minutes in a strainer and pat them dry with paper towels before cooking in a skillet over moderate heat. This encourages the Maillard reaction and avoids a steamed effect instead of proper browning. Number 2, tomatoes. This is a point that often shocks people. Cold not only ruins the texture and erases the aroma of tomatoes, it interferes with the fruit's biological programming. Post-harvest research shows that refrigeration at low temperatures suppresses the activity of genes involved in the formation of flavor compounds. Even when the tomato returns to room temperature, part of its aromatic potential does not fully recover. The practical result is a fruit that may still look red but lacks personality, resembling a red ball of water with a mealy, gritty texture due to ice crystals breaking down the cell walls. In addition to flavor, there's also an impact on nutritional quality. The synthesis of lycopene, the carotenoid responsible for the red color and linked to cardiovascular protection, is highly sensitive to cold and gets compromised when the fruit ripens at low temperatures. Number 1, avocados. The impact of cold on avocados is deep and almost always disappointing. This fruit contains more than 20 essential nutrients and stands out for offering healthy fats, mainly oleic acid, a strong ally of the heart and the aging brain. What happens when avocados are exposed to temperatures that are too low is not just a slowdown in ripening. Cold, below the fruit's comfort range, causes chilling injury, a stress that disrupts cell membranes, increases water loss, promotes enzymatic browning, and breaks down the creamy texture we all look for. There's also an effect on bioactive compounds. Avocados contain tocopherols, carotenoids, and polyphenols, which act as antioxidants and inflammation modulators. Chilling injury and simultaneous exposure to oxygen accelerate oxidative reactions that consume some of these compounds, degrading both nutritional and sensory quality. It's not just about losing aroma and color, it's about reducing the food's effectiveness as a health ally. That's why the golden rule for people over 60 who want to get the most out of avocados is to respect the fruit's natural physiology. Quality declines with each passing day, so prioritize consumption. For a halved avocado, the main priority is minimizing contact with oxygen. Leave the pit in the half you plan to store. Brush the exposed surface with lemon or lime juice. Cover it tightly with plastic wrap in direct contact with the flesh, and place it in a clean, airtight container in the fridge for up to 24 to 48 hours. Some people add a piece of onion inside the container to take advantage of sulfur compounds that inhibit some browning reactions. If you use this technique, place the onion in a corner of the container And keep the avocado well covered to avoid aroma transfer to the flesh. Avoid leaving cut halves at room temperature for long periods, as food safety is a priority. Those who make guacamole often can adopt a method to protect against oxidation right in the bowl. Prepare the recipe, level the surface, cover it with a thin layer of water or plastic wrap in direct contact with it, refrigerate, and gently pour off the water before serving. This physical barrier limits oxygen exposure and helps maintain the vibrant color longer. For buying and planning, choose avocados without bruises, cuts, and with the stem intact. Bring home fruits at different stages of ripeness so you have ready-to-eat avocado throughout the week without relying on refrigeration. On very hot days, reserve the coolest room in the house for ripening and keep the fruits away from direct heat sources. If the skin is stained and the flesh shows dark strings or a pronounced bitter taste, discard it. In conclusion, the truth about refrigerating these 9 foods is simple. The refrigerator is a tool, not an automatic destination. Potatoes should be stored in a cool, dark place, never in the fridge. Bread belongs in a ventilated box with sliced portions, frozen if needed. Honey goes in a tightly sealed cabinet. Coffee should be kept in an opaque, airtight container outside the fridge in small quantities. Garlic should be in breathable baskets away from moisture. Bananas should ripen at room temperature, with the freezer used as an ally for smoothies. Whole onions go in a dry, ventilated spot, with refrigeration reserved only for the cut portion. Tomatoes should ripen outside the fridge and be used quickly or turned into sauce for freezing. And avocados should be allowed to ripen in the open air, with short refrigeration only to hold them at peak ripeness. Each choice reduces waste, preserves sensitive compounds, and enhances the experience at the table. When the goal is to age with vitality, every detail in storage matters. Adjust your pantry today, align your refrigerator use with food science recommendations, and you'll see in practice better flavor, improved texture, and greater retention of nutrients that support long-term health.